What's going on, guys? It's your boy Scrub here, back again with another video. Hope you guys are having a great day. I know I am. Last night I was stumbling through Reddit kind of on a rabbit hole, and I ended up finding a thread all about alien abduction stories that I found super entertaining. So I figured I would make a little video reading them to y'all, and yeah, so without further ado, let's get into alien abductees of Reddit, or people who have claimed to see a UFO. What's your story? Yes, I know it's old. I found a mega hub for all the super juicy ass Reddit threads. Swag. Let's get into it.
The sun's down and I'm feeling it right, so tell me, little mama, what you doing tonight? You know I'm trying to hit it, I'm not being polite.
Alright, keep in mind all of these were anonymously posted on Reddit, but it's a pretty fun read. The first time I ever tried to write this down, first time I've ever told anyone outside the family. I'm leaving out the time and location and some other details because I'm scared of what might happen with it publicly, I guess. It was the summer before 8th grade. Me and two of my friends snuck out at midnight to go walk around the neighborhood and go see these girls on the next block who were having a sleepover. We turn a corner in our neighborhood and there's this huge black blimp-shaped thing in the sky, like the picture of the Hindenburg, but bigger than that and as close, if not closer. Completely silent and at least the size of 4 to 5 football fields across, no exaggeration, even though I was young. We stare at it entranced, asking each other over and over again if we see it, which we all agree that we do, standing there, frozen in one place. It's like black polished gunmetal, no lights, no sound, no anything. It's just hovering there, and then I don't know what happened, but time clearly jumps. Next thing I remember is the craft ship, government experiment, whatever the hell is gone, and there's a tiny glowing white barbell thing in the sky, seemingly slowly falling to earth with wisps of smoke coming off of it. Then two brand new black trucks with silver gearboxes on the back, like F-150s or S-10s but nicer, came speeding down the street going 70 in a residential 25-mile-per-hour neighborhood. And after that, I remember walking home to one of my friends' houses and going to bed. At that point, it's like 5 or 6 a.m. and the sun's coming up, and we all made a promise to tell my dad in the morning because he worked for the city, but we never did. I don't know what happened later in life to one of my friends who was there, but the other was my best friend, and we sort of made an unspoken pact to never talk about it. Don't know how or why we did that. We all grew up, and I sort of lost touch with him too. We did reconnect over Facebook and such over the years, but it was like there was something between us neither of us wanted to touch or talk about. Looking back on it now, there's no way we could have been the only ones to see it. It wasn't that late at night, and it was over a heavily populated suburb of a major city. The idea has always scared me more than any sort of possible abduction scenario. That there were others, and we're all voluntarily suffering a sort of collective amnesia, except in how we're not. I've thought about hypnosis, but that scares me too. Plus, I'm not sure if I trust the results. I was just a kid then, and I'm not sure if I could trust the hypnotist. What do I know again? What I do know again is that there's no way that it was just the three of us who saw it. We're talking about a huge thing hovering in the sky directly above hundreds of houses just after midnight on a summer weekend. But nothing on the news, nothing in the paper, nothing on TV, no words spoken about it again, ever, by anyone. This is horrifying, dude. If anybody out there has ever been awake at midnight on a summer night and seen a giant black floating thing and this awakened a memory in you, please let me know. My mom tells a story of her and her friend. Let's call her Lisa. When my mom and Lisa were teenagers, they were up on the roof of Lisa's house and they see a bright light in the sky. Next thing they know, the light is gone. The thing is, they think they've been on the roof for like 15 minutes, but 3 hours have gone by. My mom doesn't remember anything about what happened during that time, and Lisa simply refuses to talk about it. She would answer my mom with things like, I don't know, and just drop it for a long time. So a couple months later, mom moves away and loses contact with Lisa for about 10 years, and she finally meets up with her again and immediately notices something is odd with Lisa. Lisa appears very distant to her, with a dreamy demeanor, like she was really happy and at peace for no good reason. And after they talk for a bit, Lisa brings up the incident on the roof, and my mom says she doesn't remember anything about it. But Lisa remembers. She remembers everything. She said that it was all in bits and pieces, and she couldn't remember any of it clearly. She was confused and scared and wanted to avoid discussing it. Then, as time passed, she began to remember more of it. She remembers it all clearly, and remembers the 3 other times she was abducted after that clearly as well. At first, they paralyzed her somehow and did all sorts of invasive experiments on her. But by the most recent time, they stopped probing with their and began to talk with her. They didn't speak English or any other human language, but she could understand everything they said, even though she can't speak their language herself. Apparently, they told her all sorts of things, stuff about space, Earth itself, and most shockingly, predicted years beforehand that she would get pregnant in a specific year and it would be a stillborn, and that she would never be able to have children again. They also told her that it was not their fault, and they even made an attempt to save her from this fate, but they were unsuccessful. They also told her that they abducted my mother another time after that first incident, and my mom says she has no recollection of any other potential abductions, but she does have recurring nightmares of being abducted. At least she's sure that they're nightmares. Anyways, Lisa tells my mom every time she speaks with them, she comes to understand the truth more and more, and when my mom inquires what the truth is, Lisa says, "You'll know eventually," and once she learned of the truth, everything became wonderful. My mom has seen her a few times over the years. We live in another state, and apparently she has a normal life and doesn't obsess over alien stuff. She only brings it up in passing. It's not even a part of her daily life. Bro, I want whatever Lisa is on, dog. I don't really know what they were giving her up in the mental hospital, but it must have been that good stuff if it let her know the truth and thinks that she's consistently getting abducted by aliens. At least she's living a normal life though, right? I can't say for sure what happened to me that night, but here's what I know. I was driving home for the weekend from school at Indiana University. It takes me about 2 hours to get home, and I left Bloomington at around 10 p.m. At exactly 10:53, I'm on a rural stretch of highway of the 2-lane highway I take home, and I noticed what appeared to be flashing lights behind me. I thought, great, I'm getting pulled over, so I turned onto the next country road about a quarter mile from where I noticed the lights, and as the car came to the stop, I started to open my glove box to get the registration and proof of insurance. The lights suddenly disappeared, and no car drove past. Now, here's where the story takes a turn for the weird, and I'm sure you guys will think I'm just making it up because it really does seem like something straight out of a typical UFO movie or story. The electronics in my car start to go haywire. The radio is randomly changing stations while the volume goes up and down, and while the dome light and headlights start to flicker and turn off and on. This is at 10:56 p.m., and I start thinking to myself that the battery must be failing, or I have a short somewhere in the electrical system, so I lean down to pop the hood so I can take a look at the battery. And that's the last thing I remember doing. The next thing I know, I open my eyes and see nothing but the night sky full of bright stars. It was a cold night, and it seemed like I had never seen the stars that bright in my entire life. I sat up and looked around and saw absolutely nothing. Nothing at all. I was in the middle of a field surrounded by corn stalks left over from the recent harvest. As I started to come to my senses, I started to freak out. Where am I? Why am I asleep in the middle of this field? Where is my car? I got up and started walking towards the distant headlights I could see from the road about a half a mile away. When I got to the nearest intersection, I looked at the signs which read 300 north and 50 west. I was half a mile from my car, which was just right off the main road. I started walking towards the headlights I could see on the main road, and I honestly can't say how long it took me to walk that half mile, but it couldn't have been more than 10 to 15 minutes. When I arrived at my car, all the lights are out and the battery had died, which struck me as odd because I couldn't have been gone for that long. I looked at my phone, which was sitting on the passenger seat, and it was 2:17 a.m. Over 3 hours had passed since I turned off the side road for the flashing lights behind me. I remember sitting in my car completely dumbfounded, wondering what the hell had just happened to me. In about half an hour of just sitting there, I remembered that my battery was dead. So I got on the phone and called AAA to come out and give me a jump. It took about an hour for them to cut out to me since I was a good distance from the nearest town, during which time I literally sat in silence running through the possible scenarios in my head concerning what had just happened. To this day, I couldn't tell you what really happened to me that night. All I can say is that my car broke down and I woke up half a mile away in a cornfield more than 3 hours after I had stopped. I've only shared this person with one other story with one other person, and that was my uncle, and I'm sure people would either look at me like I was crazy or they would call BS on the whole story, and I can't blame them. If somebody came to me with a story like that so closely mirrors the typical encounter story, I wouldn't believe him either. It's all fun and games till you realize that his uncle was the reason he woke up in the field 3 hours away. When he told him, he was like, "Yes, excellent, my prank has laid the perfect mind bomb in this kid." I occasionally suffer from sleep paralysis. It developed in my early 20s, and I've had the alien abduction dream. My dad and I loved to watch shows about aliens, so I assume people who claim they were abducted had some form of sleep paralysis. paralysis. It started with flashes of blue light, and I felt myself being lifted out of bed by the chest. I was blinded by a white light, and I could hear a loud mechanical whirring. When I woke up, I was sitting up in bed with my chest stuck out. My arms were holding me up, and the experience was the most intense sleep paralysis dream I've ever had. I can see how someone else would have that dream, panic, and tell everyone about it. Yeah, shut up, logical person. What do you think this is? A video for people with brains? No, we want to hear crackheads waking up in the middle of cornfields. Get back to work. I was on a wildfire just south of the Dugway Proving Grounds in Utah. We were in fire rigs driving to the incident area, 4 trucks in a close convoy, when we heard helicopters. 8 black military choppers escorted us in a formation for like 10 miles. We assumed they were just doing drills and using us for fake target practice or something. A little while later, we are parked and about to start hiking to the fire line when suddenly a thin column of smoke shoots out probably 200 feet into the sky. It was a good mile away, but the concussion was pretty significant when it hit us, and the noise was ridiculously loud. We thought it was probably no big deal. We knew we were nowhere near the strike zone. A good 5 minutes later, an aircraft I have never seen flew by us at maybe 500 feet. It was flat black and sort of a rectangle, but with fins and wells on the other side. It was moving pretty slow and was dead silent, so I have to assume it was some sort of stealth glider. It sounds ridiculous, but it immediately reminded me of a huge flying Batmobile, like the Tim Burton era. After that, some military personnel got on our radio frequency and instructed us to leave the area immediately. When our crew chief asked who it was and why they signed off, and the incident commander, the guy in charge of managing the entire situation, came on the radios and said we were evacuating the area. They sent us to a completely different fire about 100 miles to the south and never told us why, except it was a higher priority, which is BS. It was already out when we got there, and we just assisted crews in the mop-up operation. The thing that confuses me about it is if the Army didn't want us to see it or if it was dangerous, why didn't they keep us clear of the area in the first place? Either a communications breakdown or they had a shit situation going down and had to get us out of there without warning. Bro, it's all fun and games till 80 years from now you find out that explosion you saw like far away and felt the concussion of was some new type of experimental bomb where they were using farts as weapons, and now you're gonna get like fart cancer or whatever the downside of it's gonna be. I was traveling back home with my mom from my aunt's house on a warm, sunny afternoon. While I was sitting in the passenger seat, an object just appeared in the sky a little to our left. We both saw it immediately. The size of what it was shocking more than anything. It had the classic saucer shape and was shining brightly because the sun was reflecting off of it. We continued driving down the road a few seconds, just admiring this craft, when all of a sudden we saw something I still don't believe to this day. It just vanishes, disintegrates, disappears, whatever you want to call it. I still don't believe it. I looked back at my mom and I could tell by her expression she had seen the same thing. Since this sighting, I've always been interested in UFOs and the possibility of other life in the universe. This object in the sky was definitely not a helicopter, airplane, or flock of geese. My mom and I still talk about the sighting we had and can't come up with a reasonable explanation as to what we saw that day. This is my UFO story and it's not a hoax or fabrication. Everyone always laughs at me when I tell this story, but that's fine. I know what I saw. Bro, everybody always giggles not because of the story you're telling, but because you always have broccoli in your teeth when you're telling it, bro. You might just want to take a quick little flosser, get up in your gums before you tell it next time. I promise it'll be a much better reaction. Not a very spectacular story, but it's true. I've always felt some encounter stories for real, but what made me truly believe was one night I was standing outside watching the stars. It was late, maybe 2 a.m. and out in the country, so it was dark. No street lights, very little to no moon. I was watching what I thought was a satellite moving across the sky from right to left, and I didn't think twice about it as I saw them all the time. Suddenly, the satellite stopped and shot off fast, like totally disappeared at a 45-degree angle from the direction it came. And I've never, ever seen a satellite change direction ever. It just startled me so much that I stood there for a bit wondering if I really saw it or not. But I did, 100%. It's unfortunate that no one was there with me that night. Yeah, I'll be honest with you, dude. It was me. My bad. I was flying around and realized I was late for SKUFFED and needed to get out of there real quick, so I skedaddled. My bad. I should have left you a note or something explaining what happened. Okay, here it goes. The first time I'd ever seen anything like this, I was 7 in Houston, Texas. I used to like to climb on top of my mom's Suburban in the driveway and stare at the stars. One night, I saw an intensely bright one floating over the tree line about half a mile away. I hollered, but nobody came to see it, and I didn't see anything else of it until March of 2008. This happened between the 10th and the 15th. I can't give a specific date because I was up for 4 days trying to come up with some explanation to satisfy what I'd seen. This was in Tuscaloosa, Alabama. My mother lived in a garden home community, all houses the same size, all one story, and you had great visibility distance-wise. I walked out of my buddy's place at exactly 4 a.m. to a bright, starry night, and when I walked out, something caught my eye to the left of me. I looked over and saw a bright blue, yellow, green, white, red, and orange strobing flashing light floating silently to the left. I stood in awe and did not want to go grab anyone because I didn't want to miss anything. I watched as it passed in front of the moon, behind my friend's place, and then I saw the outline of a craft. It was a teardrop sunflower seed type shape, and the craft seemed to have the lights being transmitted from the top half of it. It was almost as if it was transmitting some sort of upward light pattern. It also had a dark, thin, smooth line of exhaust that disappeared 50 or 75 feet behind it. This all occurred no less than 400 yards away, and after it passed the moon, I ran inside to grab somebody. He saw it, but it was pretty far away at that point. I went home, which was only a few blocks away, and looked out from the driveway the same direction the first craft had come from, and I saw 2 dim white lights slowly coming over the horizon at a slow pace heading towards me. I ran inside and grabbed my mom out of bed, and we stood there for 20 minutes while 5 separate crafts flew over us. First came 2, then 2, then 1, about 7 minutes apart from each other. Maybe going 20 miles per hour, 200 feet up, completely silent. And the way they looked from underneath was each one had 2 huge bright white lights, which were maybe 30 to 40 feet across, where they were so bright it was hard to get a good estimate. They also had a pulsating red one between the white lights that dimmed and relit. I would estimate from the size of the white light that each craft had to have been maybe 100 to 200 feet wide. The last craft that flew over us flew lower and slower than the first 4 had. Then, it made a noise. It let out a sound that to this day haunts me. I would compare it to this or that. That's the best I could find, except make it digital and multiply it by 50. It was loud. The craft made this chirping noise twice, and these crafts flew directly over us. And I believe the sound was an acknowledgement. Whatever was piloting it knew we were watching, and it was kind of like a hello, and I immediately started crying. I had no idea what I was looking at or had just heard. Bro, what if the chirping that made him cry because it was so beautiful was just a really loud alien fart that they played over the mega horn? If you think about it, bro, that's what I would do if some aliens were staring at me, just and they just immediately start bawling because it's the most beautiful thing you've ever heard. The second big experience I had occurred a couple weeks later. I was standing in my driveway smoking a cigarette, listening to my iPod somewhere around 2 a.m. I decided to pause my iPod to turn on the backlight and waved my hand over it a couple times to make a strobe pattern. I didn't hear anything, I didn't see anything come up, but I got that being watched feeling. I looked up and directly above me was this trapezoid-shaped craft with rounded edges that had a dark red and black pulsating glowing outline. It was almost like flowing electricity. It was not even 75 feet up and I could have hit it with a rock. I stood there while it hovered directly above me, completely silent for 10 to 15 seconds while it made this small kind of motion similar to the ball that Luke trained with in Star Wars. It hovered to the side, front to back in a smooth motion, never getting more than 20 feet away from its original position. It was extremely fascinating, but I was frozen stiff. After those few seconds, I waved one hand at it in a friendly manner. It then changed light pattern and hovered away behind my house. Upon deeper inspection, the fact that I knew I'd saw it, made no effort to evade my detection, makes me think it wanted me to follow it, although I was too freaked to think about it at the time. I've seen that same craft on 3 different occasions, once again in Alabama, once in Hoover, and once in Bessemer. The time I saw it at Hoover, I was at an apartment complex at the top of a huge hill with a great overlook. It was was at nighttime and I was with friends. Over the overlook, I saw a gray craft facing my direction that looked similar to a hot fighter, and as soon as I saw it, it took off to the right silently, extremely quick. The time in Bessemer and Tuscaloosa, the trapezoid shape appeared in the solid white sky, stretched to twice its length. Then the bottom shot up to the front, like it hit light speed or something. I do frequently see what I like to call streaks. They look like shooting stars, only very low, move slower, but they still have some tails that stream behind them. They can also appear in many different colors. One strange story is one night when I had a dream in Tuscaloosa. In the dream, I couldn't see or hear anything, but I could feel stuff. I was laying on something cold and felt like what seemed to be rubber between my legs around my junk. It was very strange to me since a lot of people who report abductions report sperm and eggs being taken for breeding programs. The next morning when I went to let the dog out in the backyard, which is very small, to the left of the patio there was a solid white ring in the grass that was maybe 8 to 10 feet wide. I showed my mom and she told me she'd heard a noise that woke her up the night before, but she just dismissed it. Another extremely confusing experience I had occurred in my driveway in that same city. To give you an idea of where this occurred, look up Shelton State Community College. The house was less than a quarter mile from there, and it was nighttime, and I heard this static that I would compare to a jet. I looked over, and directly above the community college was a light blue slit in the sky. I would say it was maybe 200 yards long, completely vertical, and it had what looked like white electric currents coming off both sides of it. I looked at it and maybe 25 white things shot out of the slit at one at a time, at a quick pace, leaving a trail behind it that I had previously talked about. And after they passed, the bottom of the slit went upward until it closed. It made a weird sound and it was gone. I've also had some strange experience with orbs, some solid lit that float across the city or move in weird patterns, and some that brighten up to a great intensity and then fade as they pass. After the first experience, I've started doing research because I was so confused, and I wish to understand that I've had an abnormally large amount of experiences and I can't tell you why. I really wish I could. This dude's gotta have a high midichlorian count or something if people keep coming to him to try to kidnap him. Honestly, dude, he's the next Jedi Knight. Anyways, guys, I think that's gonna do it for the video. Hopefully you enjoyed. If you did, I would really appreciate you taking a quick second to just press the like button and let me know what you thought down below. Obviously, this was an absurdly long video for this channel. I'm sorry, I was just in the zone. If you want more content, be sure to go check out my podcast. The Scuffed Cast link can be found down below, along with the link to the intro song. If you enjoyed it, feel free to go give it a listen. And if you're really in the mood, the merch store is also down below. Last but certainly not least, we gotta do the member shoutouts. If you want to get a member shoutout, all you gotta do is join when you subscribe. You get a shoutout at the end of every video and a verified checkmark next to your name in the comments section. And also follow me on my Instagram at Scrubae, Twitter at Scrubae_69. But without further ado, a big huge shout out to Taco Man 6000, Caveman, Blank Jacob, Eli Garrett, Sambroni, Ultra Radish, Raymond, Michael Savage, Pepe, TNT Yourself, Bongos, FaZe Obama, Furious Gaming with that one kid, Arch Razor, Lokabula, Mushu, Big Ben, Bullseye Ben, Michael Harris, Mad Madness, Gamus Gaming, Cyrus, Nick, Mad Madness Vlogs, Jay Green, Hex, Fortnite, Scrubby, Philip Keel, Mr. Weirdo, Sony Side Sniper, Flofty, Kanye, Weiro, Lost Sabretooth, Lackey, Hallspy, Caden, Jinx, Carrot, Copeland, the Brick God himself, Calvin, Caleb Skates, Damian Wayne, Kinsta, Isaiah, Random Bot Bro, Zach Bauman, Trash McGee, Toasty, Ansel Tom, Knees Duts, Kim, Home Gang, Dashy Boy, DJ Legend, and Tog Way Too Psycho, Alex, DJ Tendons, The Tendons, Coleman, Typical Panda, Master Milks, Aaron Loves Scrubs, William Dubois, Rosento, Mackenzie, Geo, Pwaz, Jellybean, Wolfwolves, Benedicti, Ma, Man Madness, Again, Brandon Groves, Flawed Phoenix, Dylan Chungus, Unreal Decoy, Sebastian Bees, Johnny Dude, Cosmic Ramen, Candy Rose, Fabulously Terrifying, Chandler Lewis, Ryuki, and Why So Blurry. Thank you all so much for being members. I do appreciate it. Don't get anyone pregnant. If you do, make sure they're hot, and I'll see you guys next time. I'm out. Peace.